So I've just come out of a client healing session, and the topic of shame was brought up. And afterwards, after any healing session, I would always take time to cleanse down my energy and take time to reflect. And it got me reflecting on some of my past experiences. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gillian. I'm a healer, coach, trainer, teacher in all things wellness and holistic well-being, and meditation teacher and Reiki master and a range of other things. But in the essence is that I work with people to really help connect with their soul so that they can do the deep healing required, so they can move beyond their past conditioning and their barriers to their own success. And it got me thinking about my own journey, and like all of people who work in this field, wanting to help people, wanting to support people, wanting to help people transform their lives for the greater good. You find that you've often always had your own story and your own trauma to kind of muddle and work through. And that got me really reflecting on my story. So 2009, I went through a very messy divorce. I lost my business on the back of it, and when we hit this really big recession in 2009. And that went on for many, many years, actually. And there was a whole host of challenges that came my way. I lost my home, I lost my business, my marriage was gone. And with all of that, there was a huge amount of money, £97,000 of debt that I needed to pay off. I didn't want to go bankrupt because I didn't believe that was the right thing to do. So I chose to go into liquidation, which meant I needed to pay that debt off, and I needed to continue to support the people who had invested in training courses and all sorts of different things that they'd already paid for, which I really wanted to honour. But through that process of having to go through that liquidation, all I can do is describe it as being a very humiliating and very shameful process for me. I felt hugely, hugely embarrassed. I felt completely alone. And I remember going into this room where the liquidators had invited all the people that I owed money to or services to. And I sat in a room with all of these people in suits. And I literally felt about this small. I was mortified, quite frankly. And my voice inside my head was telling me, you're not good enough. You shouldn't be here. This is embarrassing. I just wanted to run a million miles away, but I couldn't. I was actually frozen to the seat. I was paralyzed to the seat. I just couldn't move. And in those moments, people told me how they felt about me. It was kind of like some very weird intervention experience. But they told me what they thought about me. They were angry. They were calling me names. They were using language that was totally inappropriate. And I was completely broken, in essence. I really was. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And that continued and went on for quite a while. And there was moments when I think when we're really ridden with shame, that you find yourself in a very self-pitying space. So, and I know all this because I taught all this about staying out the drama triangle, not feeling a victim and all of these things. But when you lose everything and all you have is a suitcase or two and your 6-year-old son's hand, and you need to try and find somewhere to rebuild, you're using all your resources to try and focus on keeping yourself positive and buoyant for your child, but actually inside you're literally crumbling. And there were many a night when I used to just lie there and cry. My body was having physical reactions. I got very sick. I used to pass out, literally just standing up, and then I'd fall to the floor. So there was all this somatic stuff happening, which also then kind of compounded the shame and the embarrassment, the letting people down. There's a huge amount of guilt. And that sat in my body. It made my soul feel very heavy, very, very sad as a human being. And I wallowed because I didn't know what to do. I was most probably burnt out. I was stressed to the max. My anxiety levels were out of the roof, off the scales. And I just didn't know what to do for the best. And I completely felt lost within myself. So I didn't know who I was. And quite frankly, I wasn't quite sure that I even recognized myself in the mirror. But there came a time when I had to stop navel gazing. I had to stop feeling sorry for myself. and I had to find a way to get out of my own way. And when I mean that, I'm not meaning it in a harsh way, but I did need to get over myself. I had to come to a place of acceptance that this has happened. There is nothing I can do. And I had to figure out how I could move forward. And I think when I'm working with my clients now and I see shame presented in healing sessions or one-to-one coaching sessions or soul sessions, you know, those experiences that we have, they get imprinted in our energy system. And it's very difficult to release them, to let them go, because the shame is so big. And when we've got that added bit of guilt, embarrassment, shame, and a deep sense of woundedness, we find ourselves wallowing in those things, which then lead to even more negativity about yourself, to the point where really you feel quite helpless and very, very lost. And so I suppose it's at that point where you come to a crossroads. And I don't know how else to describe it apart from that, is that you come to a crossroads where you say, okay, I can continue to be like this. I can continue to wallow. I can continue to feel sorry for myself and feel the victim that something has been done to me. Or I can start to try and rebuild. I can start to re-find myself, rediscover who I am, and then start to try to make something again of your life, of your relationships, so that you can genuinely show up in the world as you're meant to show up, not as a damaged version of yourself. And so that requires, I think, courage. It requires commitment, and it requires a tiny little seed of belief that you can do this. And when you have the right environment, when you give yourself the space to not wallow, but to actually do something different, to show up differently, then things can start to move slowly, step by step. It is not an easy journey. And so if anybody is feeling shameful about something, they're carrying a whole host of guilt, they feel paralyzed by their trauma, it is not easy. And anybody who says it is telling you lies. It's not easy to overcome, but you can. Because within us, deep, deep within us, is a well of wisdom that we often forget is there. We can learn how to self-resource ourselves. So we can learn how to breathe properly. So when we do feel overwhelmed and our anxiety kicks in, we can start to regulate our nervous system. You can journal and write down all the things that are in your mind, that are so much of it that you can't carry it anymore, and you can get it down on paper. And I know people talk about journaling all the time, but I'm not just talking about I did this today, I did the other today. What I mean is to get down your fears, get down your concerns, get down all the things that no longer are serving you well, that are cluttering up your mind, that it stops you from seeing clearly. And then you need to start building a good support network. People who you can trust, people who know you well, and people who have got your back. And you start talking to them about how you feel. And they will help you and guide you, and they'll be there for you whenever you need them. And then after that, when you've got those 3 things in place, you can then start to breathe again properly. You can take that step back, and then you can ask a different question. And this is the really most important thing, is what has that experience taught me? What has that experience given me? I'm getting upset now. Because every experience, every setback, every challenge, every experience that takes you away from yourself, puts you in a position of shame, guilt, fear, whatever it might be, will be ready to teach you something. And that, for me, was the biggest turning point. I realized that I had come so far away from myself that the only way to come back to who I truly was to lose everything. All the materialistic stuff, all the things I'd learned to rely upon. so that I could go back to getting to know me.